Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. And we are talking all about intermittent fasting today. We have Brian Gryn, and he is a specialist in intermittent fasting. And we're excited to talk to you. So we've got a lot of questions to answer as well. So, Brian, welcome.
Thanks, Chantel. Thanks for having me on the show.
So tell us what got you into doing intermittent fasting. And now, you're really that's your main thing, right? Like you're now doing coaching and all of that. So what got you started with it?
Yeah, I was introduced to fasting actually from a client of mine. In the time I've been doing health and wellness for like 20 years and, always attuned to different, ways of eating. But I guess fasting was one of those things that you sort of hear from major religions. You never really, this was probably 7 years ago, never really experienced it myself other than, I'm Jewish. So I did it for like one day out of the year. So, but it was a female client of mine, and she was actually pre-diabetic, looking for ways that she could overcome, becoming diabetic and getting blood sugar, insulin levels down. And, she did a bunch of research herself and started doing fasting, got great results. She got some guidance through a natural health practitioner in the area. And I just was blown away by the results that she got. I was helping her with strength training. And at the time I just wanted to learn more about it, because I was like, God, I want to try this myself. And that sort of just led me down the path of researching it and reading a bunch of books and, coming out with a certification. And also just, Dr. Jason Fung was someone who I've had on my podcast, who really introduced me to fasting and all of the benefits and what it can do.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions for you that we have from our listeners. And this one I actually asked to someone else, but I would love to hear your answer to this. She says, it's from Nancy Carey. I've been strict during the week, but on the weekends, I really want a burger or a bowl of ice cream. Do I allow it? I want to avoid a binge. So I'd love to hear your take on that. Kind of how you eat and what you do, apply that question to kind of how you eat and what you do to stay fit.
Yeah, so that's a good question, common question. And I would say it depends on where you're at in the process. So if you're someone who's just starting out and you want to get into fasting and start cleaning up your eating, I would say maybe you want to hold off a little bit on those, I would say those cheat foods per se right off the bat, because a lot of times what happens is then you'll be more prone to it'll just snowball, right? You'll start then you'll get back into your old habits. Now, if you've been doing some fasting and doing some clean eating for, maybe a year or two, or even 6 months, and you just feel like you're in this rhythm, but you go to a birthday party and they're grilling and you want a burger or whatever, she wanted sort of the splurge a little bit. I think there's nothing wrong with that. The nice thing about intermittent fasting is it's restrictive in the time that you're eating, but what you're eating, that can be argued that it could go with any specific diet, vegan, vegetarian, carnivore, whatever it is. So that's the nice thing, is the flexibility of fasting and how it can sort of pertain to many different diets. But if you do want to splurge, I'd say maybe wait until you're a bit into the process and you've sort of got your feet under you and you know what you're doing.
So this next question comes from Tracy Pickerel. It says, Tracy Pickerel. When does the hunger stop? I started my third week of OMAD, starting at 2 and ending at 7. From the time I wake up in the morning until 2, I'm famished. Funny thing is, I never ate breakfast before. Dinner was my only meal, sometimes lunch. But once I eat that one meal, I'm not hungry the rest of the day.
Okay, so she's doing her eating windows between 2 and 7. Actually, that's probably about where mine falls in line. And she's feeling famished in the morning. Well, and she mentioned before she never ate breakfast. So she has done some form of fasting. I think one thing she should look into if she's doing one meal a day and she just feels that's not satiating enough within the 2 to 7 window, because that's a decent size window, not huge, but it's a decent size. You could probably fit 2 meals in. And that's something that I find works better for me, is instead of trying to fit all my nutrients and protein and things like that into one meal, which can be tough, especially if you're trying to build muscle, you want to get those protein requirements in. Breaking up over 2 meals might be the way to go for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a book called A Meal and a Tasting. And that's really where I do the best, is where I have like one bigger meal and then I eat again and I have like a small tasting. So like yesterday, I had a really big lunch, and then I actually didn't eat dinner last night, but most of the time I would just have like a small dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
Like just like a small. So it's like one meal and then a tasting. That's where I really kind of feel my best. I'm doing my best and all of that.
Yeah, I like
Tell
that.
us about you. What does a day in the life of Brian look like? And what are you eating?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed over time, right? I think part of this whole journey of health is sort of a self-experimentation. And so obviously I try different things. Right now, I am eating in a window. I would say I've actually increased my window. Let me just rewind for a second. So I started out fasting. I was doing like traditional, probably about 16-8, where I'd be fasted till about noon. And then I'd open up my window and it'd be open for, like, say, 6 to 8 hours. And then I've slowly pushed it to where I was about like 2 to 6:30. And what I would do is I would fast all morning and do my workout in a fasted state at about 12:31. And then after the workout, I would break my fast. And then from there, I would have one more meal after that. As far as now, I'm actually testing out a little bit of eating before my workout, like something lighter, nothing heavy, just something light, maybe, I don't know, cottage cheese and eggs, something, nothing too heavy, or cottage cheese and maybe cut up an apple. And then I've been working out like 2 hours later. So I've been opening up my window actually a little bit earlier and then waiting a couple hours, working out, and then having one more meal in the evening. As far as like what I'm eating, I typically just prioritize protein. That could be like wild fish, grass-fed meat, and then maybe some type of vegetable here and there, maybe some asparagus or onions or mushrooms with that. But mainly prioritizing protein, some type of fish or meat, and then maybe some vegetables here and there. And so that's a typical day. I'm not like a perfect eater. I do like dessert. So I'll have some type of, not like, it's like my own version of a dessert. Because like, for example, I used to love like peanut butter and jelly back in the day. And I make my own version of it with like an egg white wrap and sprouted almond butter and like a quality jelly. So I guess it's a healthier version of like a sort of a splurge after dinner. And then I'll usually close my eating window around 6:30 at the latest 7, usually about at least 3 hours before bed.
One of the things that I really want to encourage you guys to do is to be getting at least 7 hours of quality sleep every night. I personally need at least 8 or 8.5, but I know it's hard to get that much sleep. Your mind keeps you awake and you just can't get comfortable, but there are hundreds of reasons why you can't get quality sleep. But it is so important because this is how your body heals itself. So if you want to get a better night's sleep, for me, it's getting enough magnesium. And believe it or not, around 75% of people, I think it's even higher than that, don't get enough. And that's what causes sleep problems. So one of the things about this one magnesium that I'm obsessed with is that it actually has 7 unique forms of magnesium. And you must get all of them if you want to get that calming, sleep-enhancing effects. And that's why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough by Optimizers. So All you need to do is take 2 capsules before you go to bed, and you will be absolutely amazed how much better sleep you get. I actually ran out of it for like 2 days, and those 2 days I didn't get good enough sleep. So I've literally tested it. For our listeners, you are going to get an exclusive offer. Go to magbreakthrough.com/wasteaway, and you're going to save up to 42%. So make sure you put that coupon code of wasteaway.
So the number one question we still get, I mean, I can't even tell you, I feel like we've answered this question so many times, and still in all of our Facebook groups, we're constantly getting it, but it's a different question, but it's basically the same thing. So I'm not even going to read the questions because there's so many questions that we get to our questions at chantelrayway.com. And if you have a question, you can always email it there, questions@chantelrayway.com, or join our Facebook group, which is the Intermittent Fasting and OMAD group. And basically what it is that someone will find like a tea, like a hibiscus tea or a flavored tea or LaCroix, or they'll say, this doesn't have any calories. Can I drink it? Or they'll say, I found this energy drink. It has 20 calories. Can I drink that? How bad is it to have 1 cream in my coffee? I can't go without I can't have no cream in my coffee. I can't drink it black. Those are just, you know what I'm saying? It's just constant. So I'd love to hear what your take is on that as far as the drinking, the different drinks and how you handle that.
Yeah. So I would say that, there's nothing wrong with like, for example, I know that was a bunch of questions all in one, but it was like really one question, but someone's like, oh, I want to put cream in my coffee. Can I do that? And I would say yes. I would say if it helps you like get through a fast, and overcome some hunger, I think there's nothing wrong with that. Is it a true, like, are you water fasting? Is it like an official fast? Some would argue that, right? Because there are calories involved, but I think if you get too bogged down on like, oh my God, like, is this going to break it? It has 5 calories in it. Like, I think you'll just drive yourself nuts and end up not doing anything. So I think just, having a little something that has some calories in it, I think is fine. Like, even I know Dr. Walter Longo has the Prolon. I think it does like a Prolon, which is like it helps you do like a 5-day fast, but you're eating like a minimal amount. I think it's less than 50 calories or something a day. I've never done it myself.
No, it's a lot more. No, it's a lot more.
Is it more than 50? Okay.
No, it's like 800 calories.
Oh, that's okay.
It's like it's like different bars and different soups and different things like that. That kind of do like a longer fast for doing 5 days. I'm not a fan of that because it's literally just eating all these like little things to try like to
soups and
stuff like that. So to me, I almost think it'd be better is if you wanted to do that, just ate like create your own healthy soup that night or something, and just felt like if you fasted all day and then just made like a little bit of a soup at night to help you make it through.
Yes. I mean, I guess getting back to your question, I guess if it can improve compliance for people to help them get through a fast, if it's a little something like adding cream to your coffee, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it depends on your goals too, but like, I think like autophagy, first of all, like cell cleansing, and people are like, oh, do I need to do a water fast to get into autophagy? And I think it's not so black and white. So I think there's nothing wrong with adding a little bit. I think sometimes if you have something that's too sweet, that might induce hunger. So that's why they say, that's why like unsweetened tea is probably best, and then just having black coffee would be 2 good things to have to help get through those hunger times.
Yeah, my opinion on it is like to try to get to the place. So I can drink black coffee now and I drink unsweetened tea, but I trained my body to do it. And so what you really can do is literally like train your body to get there. So like if you have cream in your coffee, start with, okay, let's have cream. Do not put any sugar in it. Just have regular cream. Then go down and put a little bit less and then a little bit less. And you just keep training your body. You will be amazed. Like I still don't like black coffee. And after I break my fast, I'll have coffee. Like if I want a cup of coffee, I'll have cream in my coffee because I don't enjoy having a cup of black coffee, but I have trained my body to like it a little bit, like I can do it. So I just make it a rule where I go, I'm going to do my very best to try to it's really so much about your mental headspace of like going, I can do this. And the more that you can get to a place where you are, not having it, but I also don't believe in like getting so crazy about it either. Like, oh, this has 5 calories. Is it, that's not what's holding you back. The thing that has 5 calories is not the thing that's holding you back, honestly. And it's like, yeah, could it make it between, a 3-pound, difference or something like that? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
The best thing for you to do is to get one of those continuous blood glucose monitors and see, does whatever I'm drinking or whatever I'm doing increase my blood glucose levels? And that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, and I agree with you, the technique of like easing your way into whatever you're doing. Like you said, maybe you're used to putting in a certain amount of cream and then sort of wean yourself off that and just bring it down a little bit as opposed to. So I think the same thing runs true with fasting, right? If you're just new to it, ease your way into it. That's sort of what I teach a lot. It's like a step ladder approach. You don't have to do it all in one day. You can ease your way into a fasting window over weeks.
Yeah, I want to talk about thyroid and fasting for just a second. And I will share with you something that is absolutely profound that I have learned. And the majority of the way that I eat, of how I feel the best, is a paleo diet, where I'm eating kind of like your ancestors eat, right? And so it's kind of like, they say the quote, cave woman style, right? Meal or caveman style meal, where you're eliminating what they call thyroid blockers. And so basically you're eating things like our ancestors might have hunted or gathered. So it's like things that you need to survive. So it'd be like eggs and fish and poultry and beef, and then non-starchy vegetables, that are in season, and nuts and seeds, and then root vegetables, right? And then, eating when you're full, when you're hungry, and stopping when you're full. And one of the things that I've noticed big time is that I take thyroid medicine for my thyroid. And when I'm eating a paleo diet, my thyroid is on overdrive. So what happens is then it's too much. But then let's say I have a day or two where I'm not eating that way. Like I'm just like, I feel like having grains. As soon as I start, even if it's like a gluten-free piece of toast or, wild rice or something like that has grains in it, thyroid does not function at that level. And so let's say I go, maybe I'm on vacation and I'm kind of like, I'm going to, eat what I want and blah, blah, blah. As soon as I do, I can tell that my thyroid's not functioning. And so what you're eating has such a big play on how you're feeling and if you have thyroid problems. So having that paleo style, they've literally done research that show that paleo style eating kind of delivers up to 900% more, nutrients, number one. And then that helps you get everything you need for optimum thyroid health, including like vitamin A, selenium, zinc. So when you're eating that, your thyroid's able to kind of work at a higher thing. And so the paleo diet kind of eliminates some of that inflammation, that happens when you're eating sugar and grains. And so that is one thing I just want everyone to realize is that if your thyroid is kind of bouncing up and down like this, that's where you really have to look at what you're eating and how is it affecting your thyroid. What about you? What kind of, how are you eating and, what would you say about that?
Regarding like hypothyroid or just in general, like
in general,
like as far as how I'm eating?
Yes.
I mean, I think, paleo is a great way to go. I mean, I think you just got to, like you mentioned, be careful if you do have thyroid issues with just extreme calorie restriction. I think making sure that you're getting enough nutrients during your fasting, your feasting times to help with any, thyroid issues. And, so I've seen some studies done where, like reducing calories, can too much can send bad signals to your thyroid function, as far as thyroid function is concerned. I don't work with a lot of people with that issue. I interviewed Al Russ. She's been.
Oh yes,
yeah,
she's been on my show too.
Yeah, she's great around that. So I would definitely check out her material. But I do eat, like I know you mentioned you talk about like eating. The big word is like eating ancestrally, right? I think, I do prioritize, like I mentioned, grass-fed meats and wild fish, and I don't eat a ton of chicken. Occasionally I have organ meats from time to time. I don't think you need to have organ meats like every day, but I think once every, I know people don't like love liver, but back in the day, liver was popular. I remember my grandparents used to have like liver and onions and things like that. So, but if you think about it, if you're eating an animal, the liver is only a one part of that small part of that animal. It doesn't have to be eaten. So if you think about most of the time they'd eat the muscle meat, but every once in a while they, the liver has so many nutrients. It's such a great thing to have maybe once a month. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, that's fine. So let's talk about kind of some intermittent fasting mistakes, like things that you see people do that really kind of hold them back from taking it to the next level.
Yeah, some of the mistakes. That's a good question. I would say that one of the mistakes I find with people is they maybe try to go do too much too early, and they end up sort of just like crashing and going back to what they normally do. So that could be maybe restricting too much early on. And when you restrict too much, you feel like, I don't know, you feel like you can't enjoy your day, I guess, per se, like as opposed to, someone starting out and they've never done it before and they just restrict their eating window to such a small degree. They feel like they have to, it's too restrictive. So I think you want to be careful with that. And another mistake I think is people maybe overeating during the eating window and feeling like they have to like binge and fit it in. But I think you have to just make sure you chew your food and eat slowly and sit at a table. And I think those are important things that can help you when you are fasting, is if you just eat mindfully and try to obviously eat better, cleaner foods that are, whole foods. I think that helps as well. If you're eating junk during your eating window, it's gonna be this roller coaster of insulin, and you're probably gonna have some troubles during your fasting time.
Yeah, I know for me, like if we go out to lunch and I order an appetizer, like if we go to a nice lunch, I'll order like a small appetizer. I try to eat that slowly, or have like some right before I'm about to open my eating window, eat a little bit of something and then give myself like 15 minutes and then eat my meal. That makes such a difference for me, because what happens for me is what you said. When I get myself to the point where I call it in my book hamster hungry, or I call it, it's because I had a friend of mine, this is really gross. I changed it in my second edition because people were complaining about it. But we had a friend that she had a hamster, and the mother ate the hamster babies. And I guess that's like very popular. It's really gross, but it's very popular. So I always say it's like hamster hungry. You get to the point where you're so hungry. So that is something that I try to not let myself, once I'm about to eat, give myself a little something, wait a little bit, and then start eating whatever that meal is. That's a big impact. Any other things like that you feel like are tips that can kind of help people when they're like, if they're, overeating or if there other things are happening?
Yeah. I mean, if they feel like they're overeating during that eating window, I mean, like you mentioned, like eat slower, right? Eat slower, chew your food. One tip I love is going for a walk after a meal. I find that this way, like the meal's done, helps with digestion, helps with blood sugar regulation. And, obviously walking is one of those underrated elements of health. And I think if going for a walk after a meal is just a great way to just sort of get out of the kitchen and avoid maybe overeating.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I tell people is that like reminding yourself of all of the benefits of fasting is one good trick. You know what I mean? Like when I'm like, if I'm sitting there and like one of the girls said, like, I always feel like I'm hungry, what do I do? So like when you're hungry, kind of saying, you know what, right now I'm inducing cellular repair on my body. I'm increasing my longevity. I'm boosting my immune system. I'm increasing my metabolic rate. I'm eating fat from my thighs and my hips. I'm reducing inflammation. I'm rejuvenating my skin. It's like reminding yourself of all the benefits is a really, really good trick. Another trick for me is just having a little bit of salt. Like I have a little bit of Himalayan sea salt. I'll take a little bit and just put it on my mouth for a little bit, and then just have a big thing of water to make sure I have like my electrolytes. Or I'll go for a walk, immediately. That is like a game changer for me. What are some tips that you give people where they're like, I'm really trying to push it to 2:00, say, and like at 10:00, I'm like on my dying train, So what kind of tips do you have for someone who wants to push it to the next level? Tips like I had just mentioned.
Yeah, I would say one of the tips I like is staying busy. I think that like if you are going to do a fast and you're just starting out, for sure, like we all have our days where we have a bunch of stuff going on. You don't even realize, and you skip a meal. You're like, oh, I just skipped a meal. But like if you're like sitting around and staring at the kitchen, it just makes things a lot more difficult. So I think keeping your mind busy, because a lot of it is just really just mental, right? Like you're not truly that hungry. You're probably used to eating at a certain time. So, your hunger hormones are just ramped up. But hunger waves, and I'm sure this, is they come and go. So if you can ride out those waves and keep yourself busy with something else, maybe go do do a yoga class or set up a meeting during the time when you're normally used to eating, it'll sort of take your mind away from those periods where those hunger waves come.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, this has been great. Tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Yeah, so they can find me on BrianGryn.com. I'm also on Instagram, BDGryn. And just message me if you got any questions, or I have a Fat Burner Blueprint program that is a 6-month program that I work with clients with. So that's probably the best place for people to find me. It's just my website.
Awesome. Well, you guys stay tuned. We've got another episode coming up in just a few. Bye-bye for now.